words. Oh, yes. Do you know how the ring phone works and everything? Okay.
Do you know where it is?
Yeah, it's next to the printer.
Oh, thank you. Just doodling.
Okay. Handles that. Actually, I'll give these out afterwards. That's fine. Okay. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome. I'm so glad that you could join us for a very special Shabbat. This is National Reproductive Shabbat. So we don't always have every Shabbat every year. So we've missed this particular Shabbat before. So I'm really happy that we scheduled this year to engage with it. And I'm glad that you can all join us. So before we first thing we're going to do is we're going to light our candles, and just to make sure everybody has a prayer book. The candle blessing is on page 120, if you're looking for those words. And, tonight we are focusing on one particular area of our current multiple areas of crises in our country, and we're gonna keep that narrow focus. But I just want to say that what I've been saying pretty much every week for maybe a year-ish or so, we're living through a very interesting time in our country and in our world. And interesting is the kindest word I have for it. We are living through a time that is going to determine what the next phase of our world will look like. We have been living in a phase of the world that was created after World War II, and we will be living in a phase of the world that is created after this experience of global conservatism and global kind of moves back into fascism and dictatorship and authoritarianism. And it is going to be up to us to determine what the world is going to become. We don't all have the power of a country behind us, but it is astonishing what the norms of communities can create and the demands that those norms can demand from our governments. I am a true believer in grassroots movements, that in order for change to happen, there has to be movement on the ground as well as from above. And so as we are moving through this phase of our lives and this phase of our reality, we are always looking for moments where we can find something that is clear and hold on to that and say, this is what I'm going to focus on right now. This is a cause that I'm going to commit myself to right now. And if that is the only cause that I can deal with in this moment, that's wonderful. That is a gift to be able to deal with anything. Because for many of us, just getting out of bed in the morning can be a difficult endeavor on its own. So as we move to lighting our candles, I just remember, we are the light in the darkness. That's our job. It is when we help each other and we talk to each other and we create relationships with each other that we are showing and shining a pathway forwards where human beings are centered and policy comes from a place of divine caring for each human being. So I'll invite you to close your eyes and to take a deep breath and to just allow yourself to feel whatever it is that you're feeling in these moments and see where the night takes you. Baruch Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlikner shel Shabbat. Amen. This weekend, we are celebrating Repro Shabbat, in which we're partnering with the National Council on Jewish Women as a way of bringing the whole Jewish community together to talk about what our tradition teaches about reproductive health, rights, and justice. And when we study, we know reproductive freedom is a Jewish value. 1 in 4 people who can get pregnant will terminate a pregnancy by the age of 45. That includes members of our own community for their own deeply personal reasons. So many important stories in our community go untold. Our tradition not only permits the termination of pregnancy, but even requires it when the life of the pregnant person is at stake. And of course, kavod habriot, human dignity, and more broadly, building a just society are ultimate Jewish concerns as well. Our community should be places where anyone who has terminated or may ever terminate a pregnancy feels loved and welcomed. And our community should be places where everyone can feel welcome to share their health stories without fear or shame or stigma. If folks wish to share, let us be a community that welcomes sharing of personal journeys, whether that involves termination, fertility challenges, pregnancy loss, or any of the myriad of experiences that go along in these topics. With the fall of Roe v. Wade, 40 million people of reproductive age are now trapped in states hostile to abortion care. Those harmed most by abortion bans are communities of Black, Indigenous, and other peoples of color, people struggling to make ends meet, people living in rural areas, immigrants, disabled people, youth, and trans and non-binary peoples. During a time when abortion access matters more than it ever has in many of our lifetimes, we here at Temple Beth Shalom are committed to this work, and we'll be sharing with you ways that we can all be part of advocating for reproductive health access, rights, and justice in the weeks and months to come. I will say I have handouts to give to you at the end of the service. We turn now to page 128. We sing Hine Matov, how good it is for us to sit and dwell together in community. Hine Matov umanayim, Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim, Shevet achim gam yachad. We turn to page 138 for Lecha Dodi. We'll sing the chorus, the first, second, and then final stanza. And right before the final stanza, I will invite you to rise as we can face the doorway to welcome in the Sabbath bride. Page 138. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad. Hishmianu el hamyuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad. L'shemo tiferet v'tila. Lecha dodi likra kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. Second stanza. Lihikrat Shabbat lehu v'nelcha. Ki hi mikor habracha. Merosh mikadam nesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshavati la. Lecha dodi likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. Please rise. Lecha dodi likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. V'hui v'shalom ateret bava. Gam v'simcha u'tzochola. Toch emunei am segula. V'hui kala. Lecha dodi likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala. Penei Shabbat nekabela. Stay standing as we turn to page 146 for the Baruch. Baruch et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. You may be seated. Page 149. Let's read at the top in the English together. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Page 150. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu lemadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochvenu uvkumenu nasiach bechukecha v'nizmach b'divrei Toratecha uvmitzvotecha leolam va'ed. Ki hem hayenu ve'yorech yameinu uvahem nege yomam v'layla ve'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu leolamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Page 152. We come to the Shema that reminds us Not only do we believe that there was one entity that created the heavens and the earth and put our world into its beginning, but we also believe that there is a unity and a wholeness amongst all living creatures, that we are all part of one greater project to protect and guard this earth that we have been given, and to guard each other whom we have been given, for better and for worse. We humans live together in difficult times and in good times. And the more we can see that we are truly much more connected than we sometimes believe, the closer we will be to finding true wholeness in our world. I invite you to close your eyes and take another deep breath. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Let's go to page 155 actually and read the English translation of Lecha Jodi, of Hafta. We'll read together. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your home or outside of your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. Page 157, we read at the top in the English together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Page 158. Mi hamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, no ratehilot osei fela, no ratehilot osei fela. Malchutecha ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, ze li'anu v'yamru, Zelianu v'yamru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. V'ne'emar ki v'da Adonai et Yaakov v'galam yad chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Let's turn to page 162 for Vishamru, our weekly reminder that if God can create the world in 6 days, we can certainly take a break, maybe even a whole weekend. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Veini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti leolam, oti leolam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashemayim ve'et ha'aretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ubayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. We turn to page 164 for the Amidah. We will sing the meditation and then the first three prayers together, and then we'll continue on silently. Feel free to use the words that are in the book or the words that are in your heart. And when you're done with your prayers, you can be seated. But for now, I'll invite you to rise as you're able. 164. Adonai tzevatai tivtachu fi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. 166. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor B'Hanova, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imachot, Umevi Geula Lifnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. 168. Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Atarav Lechoshia, Mashiv HaRuach Umarit HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayeh HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Zohomech Noflim Berofei Choholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Atalech Achayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol. 170. At HaKadosh V'Shem HaKadosh, Ukadoshim B'Chol Yom Yahalalucha Selah, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Page 180 for Say Shalom. Oh, say Shalom Bimroma. Huya say Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Ve'imru. Imru. Amen. Yaseh Shalom. Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom. Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom. Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom. Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Kol Yisrael. So we hear a lot about, so you can close the books for a second. I'm going to talk for a little bit. We hear a lot about abortion in this country. It's been a pretty hot topic for my life. And the thing that I tend to hear so often that is very frustrating is the idea that part of these incredibly restrictive bans are due to religious liberties, that it is part of religious freedom, protection of that religious freedom somehow being translated for all of us. Because in this country, when we talk about religion and religious freedom, we obviously are actually talking about Christianity. Every time, it's always going to be Christianity. And according to some Christian denominations, when life begins is a topic of conversation. And I don't weigh into those conversations because that is not my religion and that is not my conversation. What I can talk about is the Jewish understanding of reproductive health care and when life begins, because we're actually pretty clear about it. There are many nuances in how different denominations within Judaism consider the language that we use, and I'll talk more about that. But there is actually no controversy in Judaism about whether or not a woman whose life is threatened by her condition should have an abortion. The answer is always yes. Every time it's going to be yes. Because we have one line, there's one whole line in our Torah that gives us any kind of insight into this. The one line or the one scenario is in Parshat Mishpatim. In a few months, we'll reach it. And it's a lot of kind of boring laws, like what happens when your ox tramples the strawberries, all that stuff. But there's another situation where two people, they're in a town center, and two men get into a fight. And one of the man's wife is pregnant, and she's like next to him. And the not the accuser, the aggravator, the assaulter, injures the wife and causes a miscarriage. What is the recompense in that situation, right? Pregnant, lost the baby because of someone's physical, combating into her. What is the situation? Obviously, the payment will go to the husband, but he is entitled to ask for whatever would be compensating for his property, because the life that is growing inside of this woman is not an actual life. It is still within the woman's body, and it is a part of property. It is a potential life that did not come to fruition. However, if the wife had gotten killed herself, that's a totally different scenario. That is, now you have killed a person, and there are certain laws that come with that. Those laws about what happens when you kill a person accidentally do not apply to fetuses. Does not apply. From that scenario, we have a lot of discussion in the Talmud about, okay, so what exactly are we saying here? And the conclusion is universally that there is a potential life, right? And that is a holy and beautiful thing. And that there is an existing full life, and that is the life of the woman. And life comes before potential life. That is how it works. If there is a physical condition that the woman is dealing with, that means that she is in a threat that she could die. We are instructed in the Talmud how to dismember the baby in her uterus to take it out safely. That is the level that we go into in Talmud, right? This predates 600 BCE. And before 600 BCE, this was what we said. The life of the woman always takes precedence. Real life matters. And it is a tragedy. And there's a lot of grief when it comes to losing a child. And that doesn't minimize any of that. And was not a life. In fact, you are in Judaism not supposed to say Kaddish if a baby dies shortly after birth, because there's such a high mortality rate, infant mortality rate, that our communities actually made even more boundaries to say, you wait a few months. If the child survives a few months and then dies, you would have a funeral and you would say Kaddish. Within 2 to 3 months, different rabbis disagree, you're not supposed to have a funeral and you're not supposed to say Kaddish. Because even to that degree, a couple months out of utero, it's still not quite the same level. Part of this, of course, really is sociological, right? You cannot have families and mothers having such intense rituals, mourning rituals, if you are going to probably lose 5 to 6 or more children within your reproductive life. The amount of miscarriages that women go through is universally undernumbered because most of the time we don't say anything. You don't go anywhere unless you really have to. Most of those happen in your home. We are very lucky that we live in a time where our healthcare system is better than it was and our infant mortality rate is fairly low. But America has the worst infant mortality rate in the developed world, predominantly for people of color. So we're not actually that great. All of this is to say, Judaism is very clear. An existing life takes precedence. You honor that person. That person is a full human and has autonomy over their body. Where Judaism gets a little bit more hazy, right, and with the denominations is, well, what exactly do we mean a threat to life, right? There are scenarios, very clear scenarios. And we have been seeing in our country that in those incredibly clear scenarios, the woman is still told to wait because they're not sure if she's reached the threshold where they're allowed to now go in and do a D&C. Actually, Claire, you could probably talk about this better than me. But, and there have been women who've died because doctors refused to grant them the care that they needed and were not able to save their lives. So no matter what, I know that the laws in this country are denying me religious freedom because they are mandating that women die versus grant abortions. And that is antithetical to my religion. That is not what Judaism says we should do. Mental health tends to be the big question, right? What it does when we say a threat to someone's life, a threat to life, and it's not such an obvious fatal situation. There's a little bit more room for discussion. I come from a Reform background. We are a Reform synagogue, and I can tell you what the Reform movement says. We say that mental health is often just as important as physical health, and financial health is part of that equation as well. That there are many, many things to factor in, that a woman has to factor in, that a parent, a family has to factor in before they make a decision if they are in a place to carry out a pregnancy and raise a child. And that is the woman's decision. Because when we say a threat to someone's life, we don't always mean mortally. Sometimes we mean emotionally. Sometimes we mean financially. We live in very precarious times, and people live in very, very sensitive home lives. You don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know what is happening in those homes. What we do know is that at least when someone walks in to a hospital or clinic, they should be treated like a full human being with the right to decide what is right for them. And so, yes, in the reform movement, mental health and financial health are absolutely part of the equation that you factor in when deciding what is my next step here. But I also just want to mention that while we talk mostly about abortions of choice, depending on lots of scenarios, whether that choice is because the child has a chromosomal anomaly, because that child has an illness that will cause it pain until it dies. These are still choices that many people must make. And it can be the most painful choice in someone's life. I think we hear a lot more of these types of stories now. But I'll say that when I was in high school and college and this conversation was happening, we only heard about abortion being used as birth control, right? And that abortions are just people who don't feel like taking responsibility for themselves and blah, 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 blah. First of all, I believe anybody should get an abortion, whether you want, whatever. That is what is the right thing for you, that is the right thing. But the fact that those were the only stories that we heard, and we didn't talk about the actually much more traumatic aspects when someone who has been trying for a child for so long gets terrible news that their child is not viable and they have to terminate. We didn't get those stories because that goes against the narrative, right, about what this evil thing of abortion is. We don't talk about the pain that people go through when they have to make this choice. We don't talk about the distance they have to go to. Not long ago, my sister-in-law's best friend had to have an abortion. She lived in Florida. It's her second child, and the child was no longer viable. But she was in late second trimester. And again, she lived in Florida. So she had to fly to New York and go through all of this stuff. She had family in New York, thankfully. We stayed with her for a little bit, and everything worked out okay. But this is someone who had plenty of financial means, had a full family, had people supporting her, had someone to stay with in New York, right? This is not a normal scenario for many people. And now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned and so many of these bans have been instated, we have people who are truly trapped, truly trapped. Thank God we have other people in our world who are trying to make a difference for those in need. We have abortion funds. Most times abortion funds are highly local, but there is a Jewish abortion fund called the Red Tent Fund. It was founded not long ago because its founder was working at the Washington, D.C. abortion clinic when October 7th happened. And on the next day, she, who is the only Jew, right, who was working in this organization, she had been in reproductive health her whole life. There's a podcast with her on Jonah Platt's Being Jewish, so you can go listen to the podcast. It's only half an hour. And she talks about how almost immediately her abortion fund for DC decided to take a stance and put out a policy that said, a statement that said that they support Hamas and the Palestinian resistance, and no mention of anything in Israel. When she said, well, maybe if we're talking about this, if we're actually going to make this statement, which I don't think we should do, but I guess we are, we should talk about the use of rape as a war crime. No, we don't want to talk about that. Eventually, she left after having been fairly pushed out by her colleagues who refused to even turn on their screens on Zoom calls so that they weren't seen by her. And she left and she started her own organization. So the Red Tent Fund is a national abortion fund, and it operates a bit differently. Normally, the patient is the one who has to figure out how to access these funds. You call one place, they can give you this much. You call another place, they can give you this much. Just remember, we still live in America where not having a baby or having a baby is like $20,000. And it can be incredibly stressful, as if this process isn't already stressful. So what this new fund does is, because they're national, they work with few clinics all over America, and they actually just give the clinics funds. And they say, when someone comes who needs an abortion and they can't afford it, use this money. It's here. Nobody has to call me. Nobody has to ask for anything. The resources are already there provided. All the person has to do is walk in like they were going to anyway, and we'll take care of it. Wonderful. Not totally sure why nobody thought about that before. But I was listening to her and I was reading a little bit about the funds, and it's just so upsetting that even in this scenario, which is, again, highly localized, right? This is person-to-person care. This is an industry that deals with individuals. This is an industry that deals with kind of the power structure within America. It's not an industry that deals with international affairs. And yet, because of the choice that organization made, they made it clear that if you are someone who is Jewish and won't sign off on being pro-Hamas, you don't have a place in this progressive and highly needed industry. And we hear this a lot. That Jewish people have been pushed out of their missions of what they wanted to do in this world because they were Jewish. It feels very much like being a woman, right? You're pushed out of certain things, assume that you can't do certain things unless you signed on to certain assumptions, right? Especially early feminism, you needed to be a man, right? The early feminist kind of understanding was the first step has to be we are seen as men before we could ever be seen as equals, right? Because we couldn't ask our patriarchal world to jump so far ahead and just see a woman as an equal. We needed a way station first. Just now we can't just be Jewish. We have to sign off. I'm this type of Jew. I'm this type of female. I'm this type of whatever. And if you check the boxes, then you're accepted. And if you don't check the boxes, then you're rejected. I don't understand how that's going to be helpful as we are sitting here in a country that needs to fight against fascism and back for some remnant of democracy. I don't understand how making these divisions amongst communities that are already struggling to stand up to the incredible amount of power that is being thrust onto the people trying to say, don't stand up for your rights, right? That is the goal of this administration, to say, don't stand up for your rights, accept whatever we say, turn your eyes away from the illegal actions that are happening on our streets, be blind. Right? We need all the support we can get. And it makes me so angry that because I am a Jew who believes in the state of Israel, I am supposedly rejected from that goal, from our mission. And then I read a story like hers. I say, you know what? This is what you do. If you can't, if they don't need us, we will figure it out. And we will figure it out through organization, like we generally do. Jews have been organizing in weird scenarios for most of our history. And one of the really beneficial parts of being a diaspora Jewish community is that every time we got kicked out of somewhere, you had to figure out how to set up shop somewhere else. We got very good at creating systems and orders and courts of law and doing it pretty quickly. We'll do that again. We're seeing it too. We know that there has been Jewish pride events because there have been people who didn't feel comfortable or accepted or were literally told you're not allowed to come to general pride events. There are Jewish abortion clinic agencies. There are Jewish sports things. I don't do sports very much. And we're seeing this trend of saying, fine, we'll create something because we refuse to give up on these values, right? I'm not going to stop fighting for reproductive rights for every single person in this country just because some people in that fight don't really want to stand next to me. That's not an option. Because our Judaism tells us this is a fight that you stand up for. This is very clear. If we believe in religious freedom, abortion laws can't be the way that they are. Because that's prioritizing one religion over another, which I'm pretty sure is still in our Constitution. That's not supposed to happen here. But we won't give up the fight. We will not give up the fight for the dignity of each human being. We'll not give up the fight for the dignity of each human being to determine what they do with their own bodies. We will not give up the fight to see each person as a divine being, as someone to be honored and protected. Politics is when you have a goal and you disagree on how to get to that goal. Politics is not saying that you have to die for my belief system. That's just murder, which I do think we have been guilty of in this country. So I'm going to read a prayer for those denied abortion care. And then I am going to say Misha Berach. And we're going to dedicate our Misha Berach for all of those who have suffered because they were not able to gain the care that they needed. For all of those who suffered because they were able to gain the care that they needed and had to make the worst decision of their lives. And all who have suffered standing with their friends and family, watching and feeling helpless, not understanding or knowing how to make this process any better. May you be safe. May a canopy of safety and peace, health and care cover you despite everything you are now forced to endure. May you find ways to own your body, your agency, and your dignity despite everything the government has taken from you. May you be surrounded by a community of caring hands and loving hearts who can hold you. May you always know that you are holy and sacred, and that your will, your autonomy matters and should be respected as such. May you be protected in all ways, able to weather the material, physical, emotional, and spiritual hardships that come your way. May you find within yourself resilience, strength, and bravery. May you know that you are not alone. Say amen. Page 371, you'll find the words for Misha Berach. I'm also thinking of Akiva Bar Avner Versara. If you or someone you love is in need of healing, please say those names out loud or in your hearts. We think of all of those who are fighting for their rights over their own body. And we sing Misha Berach in the middle of 371 together. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Thank you. All right, let's turn to page 586. 586 for Aleinu. I'll invite you to rise as you're able, and we'll start with the second paragraph on the page. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kigoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kamishbechot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'nachnu kovim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech, Malchei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, top of 588. Shehuno Teshamayim Beyosei Haaretz, Umoshav Yekaro Hashemayim Ima'al, Ushchinatu Zo, Begovei Meromim, Hu Eloheinu Einod, Emet Malkeinu Efes Ulato, Kakatuv betorato, v'yatahayom v'hashevota elevavecha, ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim, b'shamayim mimal, v'al ha'aretz mitachat enod, middle of 591. V'na'amar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol ha'aretz v'yom hahu yihya Adonai echad u'shemo echad. You may be seated. As we turn to page 598 for the Kaddish, I've been thinking a lot about Iran and the dwindling hope for any outside change, outside interference that might have led to a regime change. I don't know how many people have been killed over the last 6 weeks. Certainly over the 30,000 estimate we had a few weeks ago. We have videos of people in hospitals with the IRGC going in and killing the protesters who were taken to hospitals. We have stories of people who have to go and claim their loved ones' bodies in a sea of body bags, having to open each one before they might find their loved one. I don't know what the next chapter will be, but I do feel that this has been a real turning point for the country. This has been the largest, most longest lasting protest movement that's happened in Iran. A good amount of the merchant class was able to join, and we have seen defectors from the IRGC as well. So I'm not hopeless. I am just waiting. There are so many things happening in our world. We couldn't ever actually have empathy for each conflict because that's beyond human capacity. So you, every once in a while, do have to focus I just wish that more people were focused on Iran. This is most likely the largest state-sponsored massacre since the Holocaust. And I don't know why. I don't know why more people don't know. I don't know. So I keep the Iranians who have died fighting for their freedom always in my heart. In our community, we are thinking of Bessie Salmonson, May Brooks, Jacob Kaplan, Joyce Molly Kaplan, Fanny Travis, Alan Fox, Aaron Schindler, Leonard Eskin, Israel Deliak, Flora Silverman, Betty Kaplan Malos, George Liam, Abraham Joseph Aronson, Lena Rabinovitz, Harold Finn, Nathan Greenberg, Irving Weiswig, and Samuel Lofschi. If you're in a period of mourning or observing a yard site, please say those names out loud or in your heart as well. We think of all of those who have died fighting for their rights and freedoms. We think of those who have died in Israel and in Gaza and Iran. We think of all those who died in the Shoah, and we think of those who have no one left to say Kaddish for them. I invite you to rise as you're able as we say Mourners Kaddish together on 598. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'alma divrach yotei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam omei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitchoman v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei d'kudsha v'rechu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'momav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May peace be sent to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. You may be seated. Okay. We have some announcements. There is a sisterhood book group on Monday. There's a drum circle meeting on Thursday the 19th. But I really want you to write down on your calendars the 26th at 7 p.m. My teacher, Rabbi Sharon Cohen Annisfeld, is coming to do a program with us around Israeli poetry. So getting kind of an understanding and an insight and ability to talk about Israel through poetry, through that lens, which is a specialty of hers. And she's just an incredible teacher as well. So if you're free, definitely RSVP. I mean, you can walk in as well, but it's going to be a really special evening. That is the 26th, February 26th at 7. It's a Thursday night. Any other announcements? There'll be more things coming up, but next week's vacation week, so I'm kind of chilling out. Okay, let's turn to 625 for Adon Olam as our closing song. Adon Olam asher mala b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'et nasa b'hafso kol Azai Malach Shemoni Kra Ve'achare Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hove Ve'hu Yiyah Ve'tifara Ve'hu Echad V'yein Sheni Leham Shilo Lehach Bira Beli Reshit, Beli Tachlit, Belo Ha'oz, Behamizra, Behu Eli, Behai Goali, Bitzor Havli, Be'et Zara, Behu Nisi, Umanosli, Menat Kosi, Beyom Ekra, Beyado, Avkid Ruhi, Be'et Ishan, Be'aira, Be'im Ruhi, Geviati, Adonai Li, Below Ira. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Come put your prayer books away, come over to Oneg table, and I'll have our little handouts on the Oneg table for all of you if you would like. I almost made a comment about particular Hebrew things, so like, right? Yes, yes, very excited. And again, most people don't actually read Hebrew. Most people don't. You're right. About 13 people in total. Yes, there is juice. Wine came juice. The wine is coming. Yeah, I'll let those be my group. I am going to keep you on Friday. Yeah. Goodbye. We're trying. Two teams are coming to see you. Next year we'll have more financial fees. Oh, no, this is a social studies better. So they go, it's Friday, Monday, and they're walking around. Apparently, yeah, we got 30. You got this great. You can do it again. It's only one room. I don't sit on that whole
Guys, everybody needs to eat a lot. It's a lot. I know.